Our next camera movement takes us inward. Push in. The push-in shot moves the camera towards the subject. Pushing the camera is all about emphasizing a moment.
Get our informers to find out where it's going to be held.
A visual cue to the audience that this is important.
Public place, a bar, a restaurant, some place where there's people so I feel safe. But if Clemenza can figure a way to have a weapon planted there for me, then I'll kill them both.
You can push in on an external detail such as an object or text. In doing so, filmmakers can direct our attention to a specific detail. Or it can capture a character's thought process. Like in this moment from The Post, when Ben comes to terms with exposing the infamous Pentagon Papers. A push-in is an effective way to communicate internal conflict, like in the iconic restaurant scene in The Godfather. Michael Corleone is about to kill the man who tried to kill his father. It will be a life-changing decision, a point of no return into the underworld. A slow push-in towards Michael elevates the tension as we watch him wrestle with the consequences and gathering the courage to pull the trigger. Which leads us to our next camera movement. The opposite of the push-in is the pull-out. Unlike pushing in, pulling the camera de-emphasizes the subject. A sort of signal to disconnect from the characters. It can unveil the context of a scene, its setting, or its characters. As subjects grow smaller, a pull-out can detach us from a scene, or the entire film. Like in the final shot from Catch Me If You Can. The same movement can also emphasize negative emotions like isolation or abandonment. In this scene from Joker, we see Arthur at his most vulnerable. This camera movement away from him highlights his helplessness. And rather than push in to help us sympathize with Arthur, director Todd Phillips pulls away, abandoning him. Our next movement directs our attention without moving the camera at all. Enter the zoom. A zoom may not be a camera movement per se, but there is movement created in camera. Zoom shots change the focal length of a camera's lens to zoom in or zoom out. Similar to pulling back a camera, zooming out can reveal the context around a subject. Like this opening shot from The Graduate. Zooms are unique because there is no equivalent in the human experience. Like a push-in, we can physically move closer to a subject, but our eyes can't zoom, making this camera movement unnatural.
Shouldn't we get the authorities or something? No.
It can also draw our attention to a specific detail. Many horror or thriller films use a slow zoom to create uneasiness.
You said she's a conduit.
That's right.
What does that mean?
Well, very powerful demonic has latched itself onto her.
And Stanley Kubrick is the master of this technique. This iconic shot from The Shining slowly zooms in to highlight Jack's descent into madness. The use of a zoom doesn't stop there. A fast zoom is known as a crash zoom. Crash zooms can often be used for either dramatic or comedic effect. Now, what happens when you pair the in-camera movement of a zoom with physical movements of a camera? It's none other than the Dolly Zoom. A Dolly Zoom utilizes both a dolly movement and lens zoom to create something called the vertigo effect. Named after its dramatic use in Hitchcock's Vertigo. A dolly zoom can be done two different ways. The first is by dollying in while zooming out. This causes the background to grow in size while maintaining the scale of the foreground. This is commonly used to portray conflict in a shot, either internal.
It broke my heart to put that tumor in her head. What?
Or external conflict. The second way is by dollying out while zooming in. This causes the foreground subject to become dominant over the background. The dolly zoom can be used to highlight a growing relationship between two subjects, like in this scene from Raging Bull, where Scorsese slows everything down.
Come on, Ray.
The dolly zoom pushes the crowd further into the background as we occupy Jake's POV and battered tunnel vision. We are no longer watching the fight, we are in it. In Bohemian Rhapsody, the dolly zoom draws the audience closer to Freddie as a way to create intimacy between one musician and his adoring fans. DP Newton Thomas Siegel explains why they chose to use the dolly zoom for this shot.
The camera continues to come around him, and we're still in this wide lens. So as we come around, you can see that the audience is very far from him. But now he's beginning to come into his own, the audience is coming into it, and by using the dolly zoom, we're bringing the audience closer and closer and closer. Freddie's not getting any bigger in the frame, but the audience is getting closer simply by changing the focal length of the lens and the proximity of the camera to the subject.
A dolly zoom can be a versatile choice in any shot list to convey either positive or negative psychological effects.